I wanted to share just one remembrance I have of John Gardner. I was in the first class of fellows in 1985, and I took my fellowship year at Independent Sector, an organization founded by John Gardner in 1980. One of the reasons why I wanted to be there was that John Gardner had his offices just there down the hall. So one day I was feeling unsettled about what I wanted to be and where I should go, and so I wandered down to his office and plopped in the big comfortable chair that he had in front of his desk and started to talk to him about how I was feeling. I told him that it seemed like all the other fellows knew just what they wanted to be and what they wanted to do, and that I just couldn't settle on one thing. He listened patiently and smiled, and then began to tell me a little bit about his life and all the different hats that he tried on before he decided on a life in public service. He told me to just stay interested, and as long as I followed my interests, everything would be fine. And of course he was right.
So for folks who didn't know John, he was very much of an, I'd call, avuncular person. He just was wonderfully kind and generous when he was talking to you, always wanted to know about what was going on in your personal life and how your progression in life was going on.
And as I was finishing my fellowship and thanking my mentor and figuring out other next to-dos, I actually sat down and wrote a note to Professor Gardner, taking a little time to tell him what I've learned over my 12 months as a recent graduate. And I'm sure, thinking back on it, that there probably was not anything he would have learned from my learnings from that year. But much to my surprise, within a few weeks, I actually received a letter in the mail from Professor Gardner saying, "Dear Srija, thanks so much for telling me about your year. It sounds really fantastic. Please keep in touch." So I thought, he wants to hear from me. And every year, before I did my holiday cards, I actually sat down and would take time to say, well, this year, this is what I've been doing related to public service, or this is what's been going on with me. And every year, he would write back. I would get something in the mail, handwritten from John Gardner, the man, saying, "Oh, thanks so much for telling me about X, and please do stop by when you're on campus." So for 3 or 4 years, I just thought I was this very fortunate, blessed person who had the opportunity to hear from this great legendary person, and I would take the time to go meet with him, and he would take the time to actually take my appointment. And it took a little while for me to actually learn that what he was doing was more to teach me about what I could do to reflect on my learnings and take the time to think about what they mean. And the way that he did it was so subtle. He wasn't telling me in some kind of teacher-to-student way, this is what you should do and this is what I recommend. He was just a very genuine, generous gesture of support and listening. The last time I talked to him was right before an election, and he was advising 3 potential candidates. And he always took the time. Every single year he took the time to take an appointment or a phone call.
Liz and I were the same year, and so John Gardner was a really integral part of the experience that we had as fellows, and he was present at all of the events, and Jeannie always encouraged us to sit and have lunch with him and talk to him. And at 20, 21, 22, how awesome is that? But at 40, really, how awesome would that be?
When I was a fellow in DC in 1986, they opened the Stanford and Washington campus. And there was a big reception, and all these Stanford alums were there, including George Shultz and a bunch of people. So he came up to me because we were the second year, so he really sort of took pride in us. And he put his arm around me, and he marched me around the room and introduced me to everybody and said, this is Liz Butler, and she's a John Gardner Fellow.
He wanted to hear about you. He wanted to know what you wanted, and he really validated all of the passion and charisma that a young college graduate has in public service. He was very encouraging to say, if you have people that you want to meet, even if it's, the President of the United States, if you have someone you want to meet, you must ask them, and they will usually say yes. And it was just another little bolstering moment for me as a fresh graduate to remind myself that if you want something in the world, you ask for it, you make it happen, and it's amazing how much the world responds.
He had a gentle spirit to him, even though he had done these amazing things like start Independent Sector and Common Cause, and he had worked with the presidential administrations. He spoke to you as if he was just like you, and he made you feel special. From the beginning, I saw that here was this man who was a huge public servant, and he also obviously was really dedicated to his family. I went to the Independent Sector Conference, and it was when he was in the the last year or two of his life, and they honored him with an award in his name. And I was really inspired and went up and said hello, and I was amazed that he actually remembered me.
And it really turned out to be true, what he said, and really helpful to me. And I thought that was very John Gardner. You know, he just really listened well, kind of took in the situation, had a lot of experience that led him to kind of have an understanding of what would be helpful to me, and he helped me. And kind of in a small way, but actually in a kind of a touching way and in a meaningful way. And, you know, I think today maybe the advice wouldn't be the same, but in that moment and for me and at that time, it was quite good advice. And to me, that's a lot what John was like.
He's a tremendous, tremendous human being, and I could understand when I was at his memorial when statesmen and dignitaries from across the world spoke about him, how he not only had that impact on the broader scale, but on the very individual, personal scale of each person he came into contact with, and especially young people whom he came into contact with.